Hello, and welcome. You're about to step into one of the most gripping, haunting, and historically significant narratives of the 21st century, the final 24 hours in the life of Muammar Gaddafi. This is not just a story of war and politics. It's a descent into the heart of a fallen empire, a portrait of power unraveling in real time. Over the next few minutes, you'll walk through bombed-out streets, listen to desperate whispers in underground bunkers, and witness the collapse of a man who once called himself the King of Kings. Gaddafi's last day is a story of defiance, desperation, and the brutal closing chapter of a 4-decade reign. But this journey is more than just a historical account, it's also a powerful opportunity to improve your English. As you listen, pay close attention to how the language works. Notice how vivid verbs and evocative imagery build tension and atmosphere. Observe how questions and pacing keep the narrative dynamic and alive. Listen for unfamiliar words or phrases. When something sparks your curiosity, pause, look it up, and challenge yourself to use it in your own sentences. By the end of this experience, you will have a visceral understanding of Gaddafi's dramatic final moments, increased exposure to advanced English vocabulary, idioms, and narrative techniques, sharpened listening, comprehension, and storytelling awareness. Whether you're here for the history, the language, or both, get ready. What you're about to hear is intense, real, and unforgettable. Take a deep breath, let's begin. The Last Days of Gaddafi, a requiem in ruin. As the sun rose over the battered city of Sirte on the 20th of October, 2011, the sky glowed a dusty orange above cracked concrete and charred skeletons of once proud buildings. Smoke lingered like ghosts, curling between shattered facades and hollowed homes. Sirte, birthplace of Libya's long-reigning leader Muammar Gaddafi, had become a mausoleum of his legacy, a final battleground swallowed by silence and soot. The Mediterranean wind carried the scent of gunpowder and blood. Once a symbol of progress and pride, the coastal city now bore the scars of siege. For weeks, NATO-backed rebels had surrounded Sirte, battering it with airstrikes and tightening their grip with ruthless precision. The civil war, once a storm of slogans and skirmishes, had become a grinding siege. In the wreckage of the city's center, where past parades had once celebrated the colonel's glory, only echoes remained. Gaddafi, who had ruled Libya for 42 years with a blend of charisma, cruelty, and unorthodox vision, was now a fugitive in his own land. He moved furtively from house to house, cloaked in dust and disillusionment, hiding among the ruins of the nation he had shaped and shattered. He was not alone. With him were the remnants of his inner circle. His son Mutassim, still defiant and convinced of a counterstroke; Defense Minister Abu Bakr Yunus Jabr, haunted but loyal; Security Chief Mansour Dao, stoic and silent; and a handful of weathered guards who had followed Gaddafi not only through war, but through decades of loyalty, fear, and fatalism. Their numbers had thinned, so had their resolve. There was no electricity, no clean water. Supplies dwindled to scraps. Gaddafi, once draped in golden robes beneath his Bedouin tents, now wore a tattered brown uniform, the insignia worn away. He slept on cold mattresses scavenged from abandoned homes. He read verses from the Quran by flashlight, scribbling in a worn notebook with shaking hands. In its pages were laments and rants and betrayal, on history, on Arab cowardice and Western duplicity. "They will drown in oil and lies," he wrote, "and Libya will burn long after I am gone." He wrote of the Sahara winds, of the silence of African brothers, of the night he first stood atop a tank in 1969 and proclaimed a new era. He saw himself in flickering flashes, a young revolutionary, draped in olive green, promising dignity and liberation, a flamboyant Pan-Africanist, dreaming of one currency, one flag, one destiny. The orator of chaos at the UN, clutching his green book like scripture. But now, all that remained of his vision was ash. Outside, the city groaned with each blast. Dust fell like snow from ceilings. Stray dogs picked through rubble. The faithful guards stood watch with hollow eyes, whispering prayers, checking rusted weapons. Mutassim paced, ever the officer, still clinging to structure, ration lists, patrol schedules, rallying speeches to the exhausted few. But even he, the most composed among them, had begun to fray. His hands shook when no one watched. The air was thick with fatalism. Laughter came sometimes, strange and forced, like a fever dream. Gaddafi, for all his iron will, now walked with a limp, eyes heavy with insomnia and memory. He murmured often to no one, as if the city itself were listening. This is not how it ends. This is not my destiny. But destiny, it seemed, had caught up the escape attempt. At dawn, around 8 a.m., on the 20th of October, the Loyalists made their final move. The plan was both simple and desperate: break through the siege and reach the desert, where tribal alliances might offer refuge. A convoy of roughly 50 vehicles, pickup trucks, sedans, some mounted with heavy weapons, snaked westward through the city's ruins. Dust rose behind them like a curtain closing on a broken stage. But the sky was watching. NATO warplanes had intercepted communications. Surveillance drones, humming unseen above the carnage, guided the jets with surgical precision. The first missile struck the lead vehicle. Flames engulfed it instantly. Shrapnel screamed through the air. More strikes followed, loud, brutal, surgical. Black smoke rose like a funeral pyre. The convoy exploded into chaos. Men screamed. Some fled into nearby buildings. Others crawled into alleyways or collapsed in blood-soaked sand. Gaddafi's vehicle was hit. Dazed, his ears ringing, he stumbled from the wreckage. His robe was torn. Blood matted his hair. He clutched his golden pistola, relic of ego more than utility, and followed others through a shattered wall, disappearing into the debris. With his guards, he found cover in an unfinished housing project. They huddled inside for minutes that felt like hours. Outside, the rebels were closing in. Gaddafi's chief of security urged movement. With no options left, the group descended into a concrete drainage pipe beneath the coastal highway. It was dark, damp, suffocating. Sewage water pooled at their feet. The stench of decay was overwhelming. Gaddafi leaned against the cold concrete, panting, praying. His breathing grew ragged. He whispered to those still with him about Libya's tribes, about the promise of Jamahiriya, about how the West would regret this war. His voice cracked. His eyes, wild with conviction, were now dim. "They don't understand Libya," he said softly. "Without me, they will eat each other." The capture? A cry split the silence. "He's here! He's here!" Misrata fighters, some teenagers barely old enough to shave, had discovered the hiding place. They advanced cautiously, rifles raised, nerves taut. They found him bleeding, slumped against the wall. He tried to raise his pistol but couldn't. His hands trembled. His uniform was soaked with blood. Sunlight filtered into the pipe, and for a moment, time stood still. Here was the brother leader, the king of kings, reduced to a broken, bloodied man in a ditch. He was dragged out, dazed and unresisting. The crowd swarmed. Phone cameras rolled. Someone shouted, "Don't kill him!" Another yelled, "Justice! Martyr our brothers!" A fist struck his face. Then a boot. Then another. "What did I do to you?" Gaddafi cried, eyes wide with disbelief. A bayonet slashed across his body. He gasped. A fighter struck him again with a Shuth ultimate insult. They shoved him into a pickup truck, slumped, barely conscious. Around him, the crowd screamed insults. Some wept. Others jeered. Blood streamed down his face. His golden pistol had vanished. Mutassim had been captured earlier. He was filmed, sipping water, smoking a cigarette, smiling faintly. Hours later, his corpse appeared riddled with bullets. Whether he died in custody or was executed remains unknown. Some said he spat at his captors. Others claimed he met death like a soldier. As for Gaddafi, accounts differ. Some say he died en route to Misrata. Others that he was executed on the roadside. What is certain is that a bullet to the head ended his story. Aftermath. His body was taken to Misrata, laid on a mattress inside an industrial freezer. Crowds came, thousands, families with children, veterans with haunted eyes, young men with smartphones. Some spat, others crossed themselves, some stared in silence. He had once been everywhere, his image on money, buildings, schools. Now he was nowhere. International reactions were swift and ambivalent. Western leaders called it justice, though few celebrated openly. Human Rights Watch and the UN raised alarms about the extrajudicial nature of his death. In Africa, some grieved. He had bankrolled movements, built roads, and challenged colonial narratives. In Caracas, Chavez condemned it. In Damascus, Assad watched in dread. Days later, under the black desert sky, Gaddafi, Mutassim, and Abu Bakr Yunus were buried in unmarked graves. A secret known only to a few. No tomb, no monument, just sand and silence. Legacy and ashes. Gaddafi's death did not bring peace. Libya fractured almost immediately. Rival militias carved the country into warlord fiefdoms. Elections faltered. Chaos deepened. Foreign powers fed the flames, each backing different sides. The revolution had devoured the tyrant but could not build a state. For many, his fall was a necessary justice. For others, it was the start of something worse. Some began to whisper. Perhaps even tyranny had kept the peace. Order, they said, died with him. The final 24 hours of Muammar Gaddafi were operatic, bloody, tragic, theatrical. He rose with fire. He fell in filth. The man who styled himself as a desert prophet, a father of Africa, died beneath a highway, begging for mercy from boys with guns. This was the end of an era and the birth of an uncertain one. Libya's future clawed its way through the rubble, haunted by ghosts. And somewhere, in the boundless Sahara he once roamed with visions of unity and grandeur, the ghost of Gaddafi lingers silent, watching, waiting.